This is On Air with Dogs Naturally. Today we have a very special guest.
Here's my definition of science in the medical field. Science is man's way of trying to determine what nature already laid down. Period. If we were to scientifically develop pet food by what occurred in nature, the pet food industry as we know it right now would have not been created. It's a false foundation of science for us to accept that dog and cat foods should be between 50 and 64% cereal byproducts, period.
Yes, it's the voice of the animals, Dr. Marty Goldstein. To say today's show is electrifying is an understatement. It's a little bit longer than normal, but with over 40 years of experience and knowledge, I wasn't going to cut out a single word. Here is Rodney and Dana.
I got my awesome host beside me, Miss Dana Scott, and I'm Rodney Habib. And today we got a topic, don't we, Dana? But before a topic, tell me a story.
Oh, I get to tell my story now. Okay. No, we're going to talk about the dangers of raw feeding. And I'm going to tell you, I've been raw feeding dogs for 20 years now. I'm a breeder. I've raised all sorts of young and old and puppies and all sorts of dogs on raw food. And I did, because we're going to talk about the safety of raw food. And about probably 15 years ago, I did have a problem with raw food. What I did was I made the mistake of giving a weight-bearing bone, an end bone, to one of my large males, and he was 100 pounds. And you know, like the bony ends where they can get all of that cartilage off the end. And he went to town on that cartilage, and he actually did end up getting an intestinal blockage. So I had to take him to the vet for an enema, and he didn't need surgery. We got it out with the enema, no problems. I learned my lesson, and everything was great. But after the enema, the vet called me in the back and gave me the lecture. And he says, you know, in a nutshell, he told me, bones kill. And I said, so does kibble. It just takes longer.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the premise of our show today.
Absolutely. And today's topic is, you know, now that I know, Dana, you're a raw feeder, I want to be careful when I'm doing this show with you. I don't want to get sick, because you never know what could happen. So the show, of course, is about the contamination of that people might get contaminated. And the vets are super nervous in Sudbury, Ontario, about people that are feeding raw foods, and that they want to be protected and they want to quarantine our animals. And I'll take this stupid mask off. And they want to be very careful about it. So,
for those of you living in Sudbury, careful when you take your dog to the vet. If he's raw fed, you might find out he's in isolation, and they're very, very afraid.
Well, and you remember there was also another part in that podcast that we heard where one of the store owners had experienced one of the clients of one of those vets that refused her because she was feeding raw food, and that's tough, man. You know, you're going in and you're doing the best thing for your animal, and then on the other end, somebody's saying, "Well, I'm sorry, we can't offer you any medical experience."
Hey, are we going to play those clips? I think we should play those audio clips from that vet interview, because I think they're pretty cool.
Absolutely, we'll definitely get some of those played. Kev, if you could launch some of those clips for us.
So what are they actually talking about? Well, CBC Radio ran a story in early February about dogs and raw food, where they spoke to a vet in Sudbury, Ontario. Here's part of that interview. We will also post a link to the full CBC story below, and you can read it, listen to the whole thing yourself, but here's just a piece of it.
It's a trend, though, that veterinarians in Sudbury are not really happy about. They say switching to a raw diet can put you and your pet in danger of serious illness. CBC reporter Eric White met up with Dr. Janice Venable of the LaSalle Animal Clinic. She's been asking her colleagues for their opinions and safety procedures on animals who eat raw food.
None of us seem to like raw foods. I know I don't like them, and we polled the vets in the area, and nobody likes them, and that was pretty consistent across the board. Didn't have anybody reply that said that they advocated them at all, and most people are quite opposed to them. Nobody has said yet that they won't treat an animal that's eating raw food. However, I mean, we're concerned about the health of our patients. We're also concerned about the health of our clients and our employees. And raw food diets can leave increased risk of transmitting salmonella to people, as well as other bacteria. So if we were concerned about our employees, and it doesn't matter what the concern is, the health of our employees is important as well, we certainly would reserve our right to refuse to see an animal that we thought was a risk.
Have you had any clients that have their animals on a raw food diet?
Yeah, we do. I mean, people are pretty passionate about that field, and certainly there are people who will feed raw food diets. We do educate people about the risks with them. We don't like them, because of broken teeth, intestinal infections, illnesses. Some of the worst intestinal infections have been animals on raw food diets.
Tell me what is the conversation like? What do they say is the reason why they've chosen to go this way? Or
most people that are feeding raw food diets just seem to have bought into anecdotal comments saying, oh, my dog looks great on raw food and it's more natural and that's what you should feed, because look at a wolf eats raw meat and they're fine. But the wolves aren't really fine, They have, what's the average lifespan in the wild, I think, is 6 years or less.
What sort of response do you usually get when you try to convince them? Like, are you successful?
It depends on the owner. I said some are very passionate, and they don't seem to have a lot of studies as to why they're passionate. They've just read something and they've bought into it and they run with it. We just have to educate. Usually after they've had to pay to have a broken tooth removed or a severe intestinal infection treated, or maybe malnutrition fixed, then those people tend to stop feeding raw food diets and go more with what we're recommending. The broken teeth come from the bones when people are feeding bones.
So the clients who you haven't been able to convince, do you take precautions when they come in, or?
Employees, if they're immunosuppressed or pregnant or with young kids at home, they're going to wear gloves, maybe even a mask when they're handling that animal. There's going to be extra precautions taken. We might keep them in isolation. The real common thing that we would be concerned about would be salmonella. So they can carry and shed salmonella. They might not be sick, and you might not know that they're carrying and shedding it, but they can still infect the people that are handling them. Also, their dishes can carry salmonella.
Now, I'm sure Rodney and Dana have a lot to say, and Dr. Marty as well.
And you know what? I met this guy in New York, Dana, when you sent me down there for the Raw Roundup to collect some information. This vet today they call him America's Vet. When I was doing the research on him, man, I went and visited him. I should probably announce his name by now, Dr. Marty Goldstein. He has a client base like I've never seen before, Dana. Oprah Winfrey's, she's been there. Jerry Seinfeld. Who else was there, man? Cyndi Lauper, Martha Stewart. Marissa Tomei was just leaving as I got in there. So he has a massive, massive base behind him. So there's a lot of people that are on board with what this man's saying. And I read his book when I was younger, and I'm a huge fan of his. And we'll bring Dr. Marty Goldstein on right now. And man, let's ask him a whole bunch of questions.
Absolutely. It was going to be fun.
And hello, Dr. Marty Goldstein.
Hello, Dogs Naturally.
How are you?
I am fine in the blizzard.
Oh, you guys got a blizzard going on down there.
Yeah, major blizzard.
Pushing pause, no, there is no blizzard happening in New York in April. This segment was actually recorded in February of 2014. Go ahead, blame the editor. I know, but better late than never.
Happy birthday, congratulations, Aaron.
Yes,
thank you.
A big
and I was
happy
actually
birthday.
born on one of the biggest blizzards in the history of the earth.
Okay, since we're gonna do that, I was gonna wait till after the show, but let's do it right now. So I jerry rigged you a small birthday cake. You're gonna have to take the elastics off of it. I think it's my grandmother's.
Can I blow out the candle?
Yeah, go ahead. There you go. Good job. Hey! Happy birthday. Yeah, and yeah, it's my grandmother's coconut cookies, all elastic together.
And you know what my wish was?
What's that?
40 pounds of raw dog food.
Oh yeah. And speaking of raw dog food, we brought you on today to talk about some vets in Sudbury, Ontario. I guess they're polling together, and they're not happy. They're not happy with the local raw food movement that's moving on down there. They're very concerned. They believe that it's causing some serious problems, the worst intestinal problems that they've seen. But the biggest problem, and Dana, you could probably go on with this one, is the safety.
I like that one. Yeah, I had no idea that my raw fed dogs were walking receptacles of death and doom, because apparently if my raw fed dog was to go into their clinic, they would want to wear surgical mask, gloves, and put my dog in isolation. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, what the heck?
So now, Dr. Marty, over at your clinic, if I was to come in and bring my dogs who are feeding, that are raw fed dogs, out of curiosity, are you going to put them in a quarantine room?
No, we haven't done that for about 10 to 12 years, and we will continue not to do that. And our technicians, our staff, do not wear protective clothing or gloves. We sell probably around 2,500 up to 4,000 pounds of raw diet through our practice every month. So either we are very, very lucky, or I'm questioning what is being put out in the media.
So do you think, Dr. Marty, the issues right now that are going on, is it just, do the vets know, or is it that they don't know, or are they just some of them being taught that, hey man, you got to stay away from raw pet food? I don't know. Is it a pet food manufacturer thing?
Well, here's the scoop. First of all, I'd like to preface this in saying that I am not an expert, that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and you will have my opinion. And I do have 40 years of experience with alternatives and quote unquote the putting together of conventional and natural alternative therapies. So with that, I would like to say that I think a lot of this is spearheaded by the FDA in the United States coming out in November 2013 with a big statement about raw diets. That relates back to the huge pet food debacle with the melamine, where I think the FDA all of a sudden was obligated to do its job, and that's why they're doing this. That being said, salmonella poses virtually no threat to most dogs. Here is a little statistic that comes from the Morris Institute by 3 of the #1 nutritionists in veterinary medicine. 36% of healthy dogs and 70% of healthy cats carry salmonella in their digestive tract. And it's usually other conditions that cause all of this intestinal illness. They find salmonella and blame that. But it's been there.
For kibble-fed dogs that are suddenly switched to raw, wouldn't the torment of eating the same food day in, day out cause a leaky gut? And that could be part of the problem why they're seeing the raw-fed dogs with the dysentery?
Absolutely. Unbeknownst to most people, dry pet food has always contained salmonella.
Yeah.
We just are not aware of that. You ready for this statistic? 2009, 2010, the CDC, the first time traced salmonella illness in 79 people to Mars pet food products. Mars is one of the largest producer of dry kibble pet food in the United States. And then there was a big recall of the Diamond Company because of the same thing. And this is dry kibble pet food. So why are we blaming this on raw diet?
Well, and they feel safer about it. I think we had mentioned it in the past. 4,600 animals in the past 6 years have died on commercially tainted kibble. And that being in all lines of food and the veterinarian lines of food. My cat in 2007 was obliterated, his insides, by the melamine scandal. I was feeding him, of course, the veterinarian line of food that was full of it. So when it comes back to the safety aspect, that's always the things that baffles me the most is, well, you know what? This food is safer. It's better for you. And there's stats coming out everywhere. I wrote an article for Dogs Naturally magazine on corn. They did an analysis on corn, and they found 329 samples over the last year that they analyzed in the United States of America. All 100% were contaminated with mycotoxins. And mycotoxins, well, as you know, liver disease, kidney disease, cancer, right? All these other issues. So, we're so headstrong and focused on salmonella, but we are destroying on the other end with these other types of ingredients. And so the question again that I pose to you is, do the vets see that? Or is the, and I shouldn't say all vets, because there's a lot of terrific vets out there that do a lot of the research, or does a pet food manufacturer put blinds over their eyes where they can't see those statistics?
I think bandwagons hit the media and then take off. And I think this is one of them. First time Martha Stewart had me on her show, of the many times I've been on, we put up formulas of pet food and the first ingredient was corn. And she allowed me to say on national TV, Martha, have you ever seen a dog stalk an ear of corn? The pet food industry has its throwbacks of creation in the cereal industry. And in nature, dogs and cats do not eat any cereal. One of the other points is statistically proven, scientifically proven now, is that the byproducts of grain metabolism in the canine body, which is glucosyl lactate, supply the growth of cancer cells. What about all the cancer? In my career, the incidence of cancer has at least tripled since I graduated veterinary school, and what used to be a disease of the old exclusively is now a disease of the young. What about that? Why aren't we looking at the whole picture?
Yeah, I mean, half of adult dogs today are going to die from cancer. That's a staggering statistic. And I think the other thing is, too, we're not here to say that a raw diet is completely safe. That's not the point, because, of course, there's risk, but there's risk with kibble, too.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. As far as the bones breaking, the teeth, the raw diet we feed has crushed bone in it. So there is no danger of that. If the raw pet food is devoid of that, then add a calcium supplement to balance the calcium phosphorus. But don't all of a sudden hook all raw diets into dogs eating bones, into broken teeth. These are ways of creating fear in society, going against what nature intended animals to eat. And Dana, like you said, no, not all animals in our practice can acclimate to raw diet. The ones that do tend to have very healthy lives. We haven't had one sick client or one sick staff member over the last 10 to 12 years where we feed raw diet in our clinic to some of the sick patients. We don't see it. So we have to look at both sides.
Do you think liability plays a big issue, Marty? You know, remember I had a coffee with a veterinarian a while back, and she said to me, look, the reason why we don't want to start dabbling in recommending raw or recommending anything else in those categories is we want to be liability free. You know, we give bad advice on nutrition. We got a big lawsuit on the way.
I mean, that always looms in the background, but that shouldn't stand in the way of doing what is correct for the health of a patient. I can't tell you how many animals that were chronically and terminally ill that I've seen reversed in my career, and part of that was getting them onto raw diet, to a point that I was offered a position of adjunct faculty at Louisiana State University just for the presentation of these cases. Another very important point is that it's not about the salmonella, it's about pathogens in the food. And there is pathogen-free raw diet available right now. Just a listing of the companies: Bravo, Primal, Northwest Naturals, Stewart's, Stella & Chewy's. They have pathogen-free raw diet. So if people are really freaked out, let them go online and find sources of pathogen-free raw diet.
Right. Right. And I mean, those are all the terrific, answers that you have. I just find that with me and the people that I see, it's evident that once you take your animal off of processed food and you put them on a fresh food diet, you see the changes within days. I'll get phone calls right away and people say to you, oh my gosh, my animal just looks fabulous. So I know that there's right now a little bit of a war raging between the raw food movement and the kibble movement. But I think the biggest thing, and I'd asked you this question previously, does nobody see it the way that our grandparents and our great-grandparents saw it, and the farmers back in the old days saw it, right? You are what you eat. So if you're going to be eating these processed foods, this dry, dead, inorganic matter in a bag, is there no light switch that says, hey, wait a minute, man, maybe fresh foods might be a better answer than processed foods?
That's it. That is so true. One of the defenses against that is things have changed through the domestication process. To that, I say bull. I must tell you that I am used to bringing therapies back into our profession that got totally trashed. I was certified in acupuncture in 1974, and I got condemned for doing that, which segued into other alternative therapies, condemned and threatened for 25 to 30 years. Now, MSNBC did a special a month ago on the largest clinic in the United States, the Animal Medical Center, where a clinician was interviewed and was just raving about the effects of acupuncture, homeopathy, and Reiki energy healing, and then said there's no side effects. But it was institutes like that that condemned me for 25 years. They're saying the same thing about raw pet food right now, and I guarantee you, within the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see it as part of their natural, native, accepted diet. Now, also, there is a threat to the pet food industries that do not have raw diet on their menu for sale. So, and they're very powerful, so they could be generating some of these wars against what animals should be eating, period.
Absolutely. I find it's paradoxical that the people on our side of the fence are held to a higher standard than the people that are advocating kibble. They're on one hand, they're saying, it's breaking teeth, it's causing digestive upset, the dogs are spreading salmonella all over the place. But you'd think with all the vets and all the associations and all the people with all the money that are against raw feeding, they'd have a body count. We know how many dogs were killed by melamine and vitamin D toxicity. Where's the body count for the raw fed dogs? I don't see it. And you'd think those people with all the money would be keeping track.
Right, exactly. They don't look at the other side. When the number one disease we see right now is cancer, and no one puts a link. What's causing all this cancer? Bad luck? Is it possible that all these cereal-based foods is leading to the not so much cause of cancer, but the feeding of cancer cells? Why don't we look at that? We're only looking at it blindsided from one point of view, and I think it's time. It would be nice to do scientific studies.
Exactly.
On this.
I'd like to see it on joint disease, because really, vets weren't seeing hip dysplasia and elbow dysplasia in animals until the 20s or the 30s. And as commercial diets, grain-based commercial diets have become more popular, breeders are screening their dogs. They're doing everything they can. But regardless, the dogs are still getting hip and elbow dysplasia. Can it be the diet?
Well, come down to my practice and you'll see it. And you'll see the changes for the positive on that. Going back to something that you said before, Rodney, about switching over to raw diet. If you make any dietary change suddenly, it could lead to problems, especially diarrhea. It doesn't mean it's caused by salmonella. So one important thing is to do at least a 10-day turnover from one diet to the other. Another thing I need to say is that in my practice, we do blood samples. We analyze animals for supplements. That takes about 7 to 10 days. I have seen many cases of inflammatory bowel disease get better where the only change was a slow change onto raw diet until we got the blood results. I don't like generalities. I just don't, because there's no such thing. If there was a generality, why have the thousands or tens of thousands of my patients over the last 10 to 15 years that have been feeding raw diet, they never get sick, their animals don't get sick? Why hasn't one of my staff members gotten sick? We all handle raw diet. The other very important point is this is not a matter of salmonella or organisms. It's a matter of sanitation. Anyone that goes to the supermarket and buys raw food, meats, especially chicken, are exposed to salmonella for themselves and their children. So it's a matter of sanitation, period. When they clean chicken to bake for their children, they wash their hands and wash the chicken. So my advice is, if you're feeding your dog raw diet, don't lick their butt. Don't lick their lips.
What?
And don't lick their bowls. Wash the bowls and just use the sanitation that you use when you prepare meats for your family. It's a no-brainer.
I got a quick one. I got to jump in with this one. And this is always the biggest one that you hear, and a lot of people that I talk to and pet owners hear: scientific studies. Man, that was brought up in that interview with the veterinarian who said, well, you know, they come in and they talk to us about raw foods, but they never bring any scientific studies with them, right? And that one is always thrown in the face of the pet owner, the scientific study.
That was a very important point I was about to get to. Here's my definition of science in the medical field. Science is man's way of trying to determine what nature already laid down, period. If we were to scientifically develop pet food by what occurred in nature, the pet food industry as we know it right now would have not been created. It's a false foundation of science for us to accept that dog and cat foods should be between 50 and 64% cereal byproducts, period. And that's science applied to healthcare and medicine. Not that I'm opposed to science. I agree with you, Rodney, that we should have scientific studies applied to proper nutrition, but we have to watch out about this overbearing science when it comes to healthcare, because the end result of medical therapy since I graduated Cornell in 1973 to now is a rise in every chronic degenerative illness and a tripling of the incidence of cancer. What happened to the great old science when it comes to health?
Well, I think what it boils down to is that dogs and cats don't have wallets. We do. So the kibbles are not made for dogs and cats. They're made for what we think is healthy and what the consumer thinks that pets should be eating. I don't know how we're going to change that. We have to somehow change the pet owner's perception and
Right.
Get them to realize they're not living with little people in fur coats. They're little carnivores.
You know how we change it? It's called education.
Absolutely.
And where's the money? Sorry, Dr. Goldstein, the money for the studies that are actually going in place. Who's doing those studies? You know, all the monies that we're putting is into livestock. Well, of course, because we're eating livestock, and a lot of it goes into human studies. But where's all this studying going on in the dog and cat? Like you said, the dog and cats don't have the wallet. So who's actually doing these studies?
Well, I'll tell you where part of that money is going. I was talking to one of the big nutritionists who's very well known, and she was all excited because one of the kibble manufacturers had contacted her, and they said, hey, we want to learn more about raw. And she was like, yeah, great, right on. So she went and talked to them, and they paid her top dollar for this, and they didn't want to know about raw feeding at all. What they wanted to know is what the triggers were to make people buy product. So what were the triggers that made people move to raw? They had no interest in making their product better, only in selling more product.
Yeah, there you go, and that's it, because there was a lot of subsidizing when it comes to these kind of issues. All I can say is just sit back, because I've learned how to do this over 40 years, and watch the trends. I can't tell you the condemnation for me using probiotics over the last 25 years. Now Purina has a probiotic on the market that is a huge seller. In 1978, my license was verbally threatened for treating arthritic dogs with glucosamine supplements because I wasn't using standardized drugs. Do you know what the sales of glucosamine are in veterinary medicine right now? Oh my God. So just sit back and watch the trend. Acupuncture is 3,000 years old. Now it's highly accepted in veterinary medicine. It wasn't 20 years ago. So what are we, 2,920 years behind the time?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break.
Speaking of trends, the rumor has it at the trade shows that Purina is looking for freezer space. Wellness is looking for freezer space. And that really makes me wonder because right now the AVMA is very much against raw food. They've got an official position against it. You can't tell me that Purina would be looking for freezer space right now if they didn't have the backing of the veterinary associations.
Correct.
So I think when Purina rolls out a raw food, whether that's good or bad, I think it's bad. But when they do, I think the veterinary associations may have a change of mind about it.
And there is a misunderstanding with that because raw food is not the problem. It's the pathogens that they say are the problems. And like I said before, the consumer can get pathogen-free raw diet right now. And end of problem. If research indicates that 36% of healthy dogs and 70% of healthy cats carry salmonella, should they be taken out of society?
I love that stat.
Like raw diet? Because they have
the
the possibility, the potential to spread salmonella into the environment. It's the same thing. So should we test all dogs if they have salmonella? Should their owners wear gloves? Should they not be? I mean, should they not be treated by veterinarians because they're carrying salmonella?
There's been salmonella in kibble, according to a manufacturer, for the past 25 years at least. There's been 16 recalls last year in the first 3 months with salmonella in kibble. So if everybody is so worried about salmonella, man, it's everywhere.
Yeah. And one of the recalls was just from touching the bag. It wasn't even what was inside of the bag. People were getting salmonella just from handling the bags.
That's right.
That's
You know why? It was probably a raw bag.
Dana, that took a second. You were like,
Maybe we should HPP the bags.
Right, exactly. Right. Well, don't allow bags into veterinary practices, or anyone that handles bags has to wear gloves.
Listen, they're doing that now, actually. Stella and Chewy's is UV in the bags. It's another process that they're doing on top of the top of the food. Dr. Marty Goldstein, listen, it was awesome having you on. And I never got to mention, I was just about to say that, man. I love the shirt. I was showing Dana earlier. I got my Tweet Me shirt, but it's got nothing on your shirt, man. You got to send me one like that.
Well, you know what where this came from?
Tell me.
20 years ago, Banana Republic. They never have anything like this. Saw it on the rack, grabbed it, and it's my favorite shirt of all time.
Well, you know what? We're honored to have you on the show, and Dana wanted me to tell you, as being a guest on the show, we're going to send you your own complimentary jar of maple syrup. Rumor has it that you like it. I don't know where that came from.
I chug it. I don't like it. I chug it.
Thanks so much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure, and keep up the good work, because what this is, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about doing the best for the health of our companion animals. We don't have all animals on raw because they can't acclimate, but many do, and the ones that acclimate, in my 40-year experience, do great, period. Anecdotal, yes. Experiential, absolutely.
Show notes for the podcast are available at dogsnaturallymagazine.com/Dr. Marty. You will find links and information related to the subject matter discussed. As always, thank you for watching and listening. I will end the podcast with a bonus blooper reel. Enjoy.
When I was younger, and I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah, I think everybody grew up and cut their teeth on. Come on!
Damn you, you piece of white. Damn you. Okay, keep talking. Keep talking. Hold on. I plugged in for a second. Takes 1 second. You know what? I had charged him all night too.
Yeah, sure you did.
I charged him actually 5 minutes before we started the segment.
Yeah, exactly.
My name is Rodney Habib, and I'm a podcast liar.
Once again, who has the surgical mask? Who has all of the fun props and the toys? Who did exactly? Show us that again. Show us that again. I want everybody to see what Rodney spent his time on. Yes.
Look,
a little school project.
Look at the ingredients.
That's great. Now, show us your light. Show us your non-functional light that you did not charge for the show. Exactly.
Hold on, wait, but I charged it for a second. Look, we're back on. All right.
Can we talk now?
Yeah, we can talk now.